Is there a secret to getting more advertising sales for your magazine? Lindsey Stephens knows and is going to tell me in the latest episode of Making Money from Magazines. So today I'm here with Lindsey from Red Carpet Consultancy. Hi Lindsey, welcome.
Hi Nikki, thank you for having me.
So tell us your top 10 secrets to increasing ad revenue for your magazine then.
Well, there's obviously more than 10, but I'm going to pick out my top 10. And I think the thing to start with, above all else, is to have a plan. I think that's the point where we should start. So if you're, publishing quarterly or biannually or 12 issues a year, whatever that is, I would suggest always laying down a plan, because when you're talking to those prospective advertisers, you don't want to be having to go back to them time and time again throughout the next 12 months. It's really good for an ad salesperson or a publisher, whoever's talking to the client, to kind of know what their objectives are and then talk through the next 12 months and how you can help fill gaps or, put solutions into their issues and help them get to their objectives over that 12 months. So it's a bit more of a, educated kind of conversation, as opposed to, I've got a page in a mag and would you like to buy it, Mr. Customer?
Yeah, it makes you look more organised too, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, things do change. Publishing magazines, people who publish magazines will know it's not easy, and things do change, and sometimes you will have to be reactive, but on the whole, you need to lay down your 12-month plan, and if you've got that, then you can fit your advertisers into the best places over that 12-month period, I would say.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be set in stone either, but it can have, give you some steer for when you're talking to people.
Absolutely. Everybody, no matter what the niche is, so whether you're a lifestyle mag or a motors mag or a home interest or wedding, whatever that is, there's going to be seasonal trends. So, it's always good to start with that and then build the blocks from there.
So what's up next then after you've got your plan?
Well, after you've got your plan, I think maybe then you can look at slotting in some feature selling. So you've got that 12-month plan, pretty much the skeleton of that schedule that's going to lay down, and then you can look at some feature selling. So there's always going to be advertisers out there in the market that maybe can't afford the entry level point that you're at. Some magazines might not want to do anything smaller than full pages. So it really depends. Again, it's a sweeping and broad statement, but you can then look at slotting in some feature sell. So in all the magazines I've ever worked at over the years, we've always added in a bit of feature selling. And again, that can piggyback onto some of the seasonal stuff or some of the big things that happen in a calendar year. Women in business was always a really good example for me when I was working on lifestyle mags. So there'll be lots of women in business in that marketplace that maybe can't afford to advertise with a full page or do a schedule or lay something down with you, but really want to get, be part of that brand or magazine. So creating a feature for them, giving them an entry level point and adding some value to that will start, because, from small acorns grow big trees. So if you can hook them in on a feature at some point, they might turn into a longer standing advertiser.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of word of mouth there as well, right? So you're not just having the person feature, but they're also going to tell their pals and they'll tell their pals and so on.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other really good things that we did, which leads me on to another point, I guess, is on the back of that feature sell, is to maybe host an event, because not only do you get all of those people talking to each other and saying how good it is to be part of something, but then you get them talking to their friends, and then it's a bit of marketing as well as selling advertising at the same time.
Yeah, and creates that sense of community too as part of that event, huh?
100%. And all the most successful magazines have got that, some sort of sense of community or brands, so if you look right down to real local community magazines, they've got that in abundance. And then even right up to those national mags like Vogue, they've got a community. It's just in a different sense, that everybody's a fashionista or whatever that might be. It's their sense of community. So that's really valuable in my opinion.
Just expanding on the events a little bit. For a lot of publishers, I mean, this specific podcast is about advertising revenue, but we're talking about events, and is that asking people to create a whole new department for their magazine, or what do you think about that? Because for small publishers, it can be a massive task for them.
It can be, and I think you have to manage that, accordingly to what your magazine is, how often you're publishing it, and what resource you've got, how many of you are there. You can put a themed lunch together relatively quickly, and then you get those people in the room and they're all talking about it. So whilst it's not directly you selling advertising to them, it is a way to build that relationship even further, kind of solidify the relationship between you and those advertisers. And what is also really good is those advertisers speaking to other advertisers at that lunch. So nobody should be setting out to do a 200-seater awards do. I get it, that's a bit of a handful, but yeah, small and intimate gatherings I think go a long way.
Yeah, and a really nice chance for them to connect with readers as well, huh? Because I mean, anybody
Absolutely,
that's in that
yeah.
room is going to be part of that community. So yeah.
Yep, without a doubt. Keep it small and succinct.
So we've got create a plan, right? Organize some features, and then we've got do an event off the back of those features, or create an event in general. What's next?
Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to make sure that your advertising salespeople, because they've had a bad rap over the years. Let's be honest. We kind of get tarred with they only want us for our money type of brush. And I think I've always told my teams in the past, don't let the only touch point be when you're asking a client for money. Create touch points throughout the year. If you're kind of talking to people about what's happening in their industry or what is going on in the world, or kind of, just making a note to say happy birthday or whatever that might be. It seems a bit cheese on toast, but it's true. The more touch points that you've got with that customer, the more likely they are to buy in with you and engage with you. And so don't make it all about hello, it's me again, and it's going to cost you 500 quid to speak to me.
I suppose it's just about making friends with people as well, huh? So that they start to trust you, and then they can treat you as their marketing department, can't they?
100%. It was one of my best lines when I was managing salespeople, is to become an extension of that individual's marketing department. Because you might be talking to a business which is only 2 people strong. You might be talking to a business which has got 8 strong marketing departments and 500 employees. You just don't know. It depends at what level you're talking to. But no matter who you're talking to in that business, they are going to want some guidance. They are going to want some level of trust. And if you recommend the right product at the right time and deliver on what you've said, then they'll inevitably trust and talk to you again in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. So what about those sales teams then? You were talking about how they get a bad rap. What do you think that they could do differently?
So in bigger organizations, you might have to tick a few boxes based on what the business is telling you to do, when actually, if you're going to be real true to yourself and sell well on a magazine, you've got to recommend what you genuinely think is right for that customer, not try and fit square pegs into round holes. Ask questions, learn about the business, and try to put solutions into their problems, or lay down a path for them that they can clearly see in order for them to achieve their 12-month goals, for example.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of doing it in reverse, isn't there? There's a lot of kind of, I've got to sell this page. What am I going to sell, or who am I going to sell it to? When actually, if we did it the other way around, with who wants what are they looking for, what do they need, then it would be a bit better, huh?
100%. It's everybody wants to be listened to. Everybody wants a solution to their problem, and it's getting increasingly difficult out there with the abundance of other advertising methods that people can use. Magazines are a valuable part of that if we do it right.
Do you think that sales managers usually read the magazine, or is that something that they could do a bit more of?
Well, if the sales manager doesn't read it, we've got a problem. Okay, it's sales teams that often don't read it. And when I was the sales manager, sales director, then I'd often talk to my team about it's a columnist, for example, and they'd say who, and I just knew that they hadn't read it. And actually, one of the things I started up in another business was to do a bit of a Monday morning quiz about what had happened the week before, or what was in that issue before, and it really makes them think. Because if you don't know your product, how in God's name can you sell it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to know it and understand it and feel passionate about it. And I think people have told me time and time again, when I worked for brands that I loved, they could really tell when I was talking that that's what I loved to do, because I read every single page, I laid out every single page from cover to cover. So I would expect the team to do exactly the same. Rule number 1, read the magazine.
Yeah, and lots of ideas come out of that as well, right?
Of course, yeah, because you see things, and that kind of leans into that touch point thing we talked about. So if you can see that your editor has written has written a piece about a local hotel, let's say, for example, it's good for you to say, have you seen on page 24, we've done a really brilliant review, or whatever. The kind of, one of the other real key points to this conversation is where the magic happens for me. And where the magic happens for me is when editorial and sales come together. So the editorial team need to be a little bit more commercially focused, but the commercial team definitely need to respect the editorial because, it's the two things gel together really, really well. And that for me is when our magic happened, when the two things came together.
Mm. What about more kind of traditional tools, or maybe things that people haven't thought about? I think I've heard a great idea from you in the past about using PR stories better. What have you done with that?
Yeah, most editors will tell you that they are inundated daily. They need a separate inbox almost, inundated daily with press releases and things that people think are great news or a hot topic, which maybe aren't particularly right for a story, for example, at that time. So when the editorial team come together with the commercial team, and they often send them over, we can then make a call on that and say, look, it's clear that you're trying to promote X, Y, or Z. Let us help you find a way to do that. You are going to have to pay for it, but let's help us find a way to do that. And we could turn it into more of an advertorial. It doesn't need to be a straight ad, but if you're working with the editor, they're going to tell you, look, I'm not covering this for this reason, but I will help out by doing X, Y, or Z. Send it over, and more often than not, you could turn a press release into a sale.
It's a really cool idea. And what about things like classifieds or directories? Have you had any experiences in them?
Yes, started my sales career on the classified section of Prima magazine. That's how old I am. So, and I loved it. And there's a place for directories, I think, in the right environment. And so in some cases, absolutely not. Really need to work with the designer and editorial to make sure that the aesthetics of that is right. So, in a wedding magazine, there's going to be lots and lots of suppliers that maybe can't afford the bigger ads, but still we need to know about them, or the reader needs to know about them. Keep the reader at the kind of key of what you're doing. And in some cases, not so much. With some sort of luxury magazines, it doesn't lend itself to that as well, maybe. And what you don't want to do, it's a fine line between, making the magazine just a completely commercial entity by putting anything you can in to get money, or, trying to find a way. Because if a directory or a classified doesn't lend itself, then another way to help monetize would be to do supplement or a kind of an added value thing that goes with the magazine. So it comes out of the main book, if you like, and it gets either bagged on, or you can distribute that separately with a topic of choice.
You mean like a brand extension, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So some people will do quarterly specials. Other people will just throw something in because it's topical at the time. And I've done lots of them over the years, from geographical, kind of specials, or we've done Meet the Experts, or again, Women in Business. You can find a topic where there's a mass market audience and then pull that together. So you're not really changing or shaping the way that the magazine looks if you don't feel like a classified or directory lends itself to your publication.
Yeah, I've heard some great examples of brand extensions in the past. Things like Men's Health sausages were available for a while. And think about as well, like some businesses have actually, turned their business into the brand extension almost. So like Good Housekeeping, they've got the Good Housekeeping Institute, which is, I think, the main part of their business now. So you never know how these things are going to grow, huh?
No, absolutely. And that's true of every market. As I'm listening to a famous pop star's audiobook at the moment, and she talks about how they made more money from selling merch or brand extensions of their brand than she did writing songs and singing them, which is what she was employed to do. So I think it's key getting it right. What you don't want to appear to be doing as a credible publication is just monetizing everything that moves. You've got to do it. But audience, you see, is the biggest thing. If you've got no audience, then you've got no business. So
how do you think that people should talk about their audience a bit more? Because I think a lot of people struggle from kind of a bit of a lack of confidence, so they think that they should have a different audience to the people that they're trying to target, but maybe actually they should be just targeting a different group of people. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you need to really understand who your audience are. So often, especially if you're a relatively new magazine to the market, you start out thinking you're going to target A, B, or C, and off you go writing for that prospective audience, and that's absolutely fine. But what you'll find is not enough people delve into who that person is as a human being and what else they do. So you hear it all the time. Oh yeah, we target ABC1 women. Well, of course you do, but do they actually read the magazine? Who's actually physically picking it up? And also, if you've got a Motors magazine, for example, then you would use a sweeping statement like, well, we're targeting men, or men are reading our publication. But actually, if you just delve a bit deeper into that audience, what does that man also do other than reading a car magazine? Does he, has he got, what kind of job has he got? What does he do at the weekend? Does he buy a Rolex or does he buy a Swatch? What does he do?
Yeah.
And what floats his boat? What makes him tick? And talk a little bit more roundedly, if that's a word, about your audience, as opposed to just saying men or ABC1 women.
Yeah, and be really proud of that audience, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Every reader has got a value, so it's kind of, if you try to stick to one size fits all, doesn't work out.
You've given us a lot to go on there. So do you want to just recap all those 10 points then?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kind of make it clear what those 10 points are. So creating a plan, making sure you've got that 12 months laid down so you and them, advertisers, know where you're going. Press releases we talked about, and how that if editorial pass those over, we can turn those potentially into sales. Point 3, feature selling. Let's make sure that we add in some features to invite other advertisers into our publications. Creating events, number 4. Look at how you can kind of get those people together and create some sense of community. Point 5, be an extension of their marketing department, help those customers and be more than an advertising salesperson to them. 6 is the touch points, which comes on from the back of that. So creating more touch points than just asking that client for money is key. Talk about your audience. Point 7, make sure you understand and know who they are. Make sure you're reading your magazine. Point 8, so that you understand and you know what you're selling. Point 9, classifieds and directories. We touched on whether we think that we could monetize those. And if we can't, then point 10, create a supplement.
Thank you. So what do you think your top thing is that people should think about then when they're coming at their ad sales?
I think there's 2. And the first is definitely to create a plan, lay down a plan, know where you're going for the next 12 months. It gives everybody, a kind of keeps everybody organized. But the second thing is keep showing up. So yeah, we talk about those touch points, but keep showing up. Sending an email out to a client and not getting a response is not the end. Keep showing up.